Hello and welcome to Differential Discussions. I'm Melissa,
And I'm Dave.
and today we have another synovial fluid.
Yeah, them joints, they. Yeah, synovials are the body fluid that I'm the most bored with at the bench, which isn't fair to synovial fluids, but, you know, clinically, they're just not quite as exciting as I would normally like.
Yeah, it's usually either crystals or bacteria.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so just scanning the center of the cytospin looks really concentrated.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
probably, we probably won't spend a lot of time in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you come out towards the edges, this you can
Better.
tell what the cells are, or not on
Yeah.
10x, but you will be able to tell what the cells are when you drop down.
Challenge accepted. I don't want to give anyone bad habits. Yeah, so this one is probably a slightly heavy application. Might have benefited from a light dilution,
Yeah. Okay.
but it looks like it's definitely workable.
I think we'll just start here.
Sounds good.
Drop down. The other thing I'm wondering. Oh, interesting.
Oh man, something so
This one's gonna be good.
so the color of the cells here tells me a thing, sort of. So I think most people can kind of see the difference in color from looks like there's red cells kind of interspersed here. Well, yeah, I should be responsible.
Just put a little bit too much oil on. I was like, whoops. Deep fried dips over here.
Deep fried dips. I forgot about that. All right. So what do you think, Melissa? EOs everywhere, Dunzo Bunzo, we're all
All
set?
EOs. EO,
What's that?
you get an EO. You get an EO.
So coloration can be very, very tricky for body fluids. I think we've addressed this before.
Yes.
But depending on what the pH and everything of the fluid and what's going on, color can be very, very deceiving. So for granules will actually be the most important factor for us to be able to say eosinophils or otherwise. But yeah,
Well, and like you were
this is
alluding to earlier, is I feel like there's like red cells interspersed, making
yep.
it look even a little bit trickier. Let's try
Yeah.
to a thinner area. And like at the edge you can kind of see, but I'm gonna try to find a even thinner area for us. And the reason this is thicker.
Beautiful. Look at that. And then like a light switch, right? We got an area that we can work with. I know you just went through the trouble and found a beautiful area. Would you mind going back to the shitty area?
I'll try.
Excuse my language.
I mean,
So
kind of a
yeah,
trap.
this is perfect. So the thing that I notice, right, is everything looks for lack of a better term, I'm borrowing from astrophysicists. This is not the accurate use of this word, but everything's red shifted. So everything's shifted towards that side. So we have neutrophils that have this really red looking cytoplasm, and then their nucleus is very blue. It's not purple. It's not the rich purple we expect. So all of the staining characteristics on this slide have shifted towards a different spectrum. That needs to be very much front of mind when you're looking at this. I would hope that an experienced morphologist, when you look at this should kind of spook you maybe the first time you see it. These are not the color patterns that you'd expect to see.
More acidic.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't want to go out on a limb and guess about the pHs or whatever. But yeah, exactly. Right. So be mindful of that. And then I think the red cells that are kind of smushed in here they look very, very rich red and not that like soft kind of color I expect.
Yeah, they're very
Okay, so
vibrant.
I'm done.
All right, let's go back to that other
But
area.
yeah, I hope you
Oh,
can. Yeah, perfect. Good.
yeah, so now they're not all EOs anymore.
Right. Oh, where'd all the EOs go? Right. Um, so yeah, and this is very, very difficult for someone starting out with body fluids, but
So one, finding a better area because you knew you
yeah.
were too thick, and then
Yep.
two, even though because these neutrophilic granules are still pink. Like if you look here, they're very pink compared to what they normally are.
Yep.
But again, it's the granule characteristic. I know when we talked about peripheral blood smears, I'd harp on, well, neutrophils have pinpoint granules and EOs have big, chunky granules that are of equal shape and equal size. And people are probably like, you're like a broken record, lady. But it matters here because the pH is slightly off, where
Mhm.
the granules are very pink. And so they're pinpoint granules.
Yep. Yep.
So we know they're neutrophilic because EO granules should be honking, large,
Yep.
equal shape, equal size.
Yep. Yeah, from a morphologist perspective, cells give you lots of different evidence pieces that you put together to make the determination. Not uncommon for you to have like 7 out of 10 features that you want or something to that effect,
Yep.
right? But sometimes you have the 1 out of 10, right? So sometimes the fact that they're pinpoint granules is all you have.
Yeah.
So you know, and that can be spooky. That's scary, right? When
Well,
you
because the specimen is not at the optimal pH for the staining.
Yep.
I mean, when
Yep.
you come to this area, notice how now the nuclei are back to purple.
Yep. Hmm.
They're not as blue as what they were before.
Yep.
So this is a much better area for viewing than where we were.
Yep. Agreed.
And then
And
so mostly neutrophils, but then there's the monomax kind of spread in between here. This might be one too.
I was literally just about to bring that up. Yep.
Oh, there's another one here.
We think alike, Melissa. We think alike.
We do.
So yeah, there's a lot of neutrophils, but there's a fair amount of monomax probably, and you know maybe it still only amounts to 5% or something, but yeah, interesting.
And so we know we're looking at a synovial fluid. So typically, we already said this. What we're looking for are either crystals or bacteria, especially with this many neutrophils here. Is that a crystal? Could be. I
It's
don't
not refracting like we want it, right?
know.
What about this?
Yeah. Again, it's not refracting like we want them, but it definitely looks like the negative space.
Yeah. And so it'd be rare for a vacuole, just given the physics of everything, for them to have like hard edges. So, but I
Square?
also expect that refractility. What's that,
Yeah.
Melissa? Sorry.
A square vacuole?
Yeah, exactly. So those things should like
Yeah.
raise your interest. Now, again, this is not the definitive test
No.
to identify and but it's good to
But the other thing too is the last video that we did where there were crystals, excuse me, there was a ton of them, and it was like crystal, 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 crystal. Here, if these are crystals,
yeah.
they're super subtle. They're
Yeah.
not like in your face sort of thing. They're really easy to miss.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I just want to point out this looks like a lymph.
I agree. Yep.
I mean, the cytoplasm is like doing this weird thing, but it's just again
Yep.
the cytospin, so it just looks like a lymphy.
Yep.
And
I
then a
agree.
mono over here.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so the picture's coming together a little bit here.
Now we're getting into that ugly, thicker area. So let's.
Yeah, you know, ugly, thicker areas, bad for cell identification and differentials, but they can be useful to see certain things. It's almost like we scripted this. I swear.
As
I
you were
swear.
saying that, I saw this and I was like,
Yeah, sometimes a plan comes together. It looks like there's actually a couple of cells here now. So there appears to be some cocci bacteria in and around here. So not unheard of, but somewhat rare probably to have both concurrently, a crystal and a bacterial infection. Very fascinating. Those look pretty definitive to me. I would still go, stick my head in micro and go, hey, how'd that gram stain look? Right.
Yeah.
And they would likely come back and say gram positive cocci. And I
Yeah,
go,
but there's a lot of them because this cell here, like you pointed out, and then this right there
yep.
with all that cocci, and then it looks like there's a couple more over here. There's probably a bunch of it just around.
And you'll notice there's a lot of these body fluid slides. There's a lot of junk. There's a lot of debris, cellular and otherwise. For bacteria, if you're not used to looking at bacteria, I mean, I don't look at them particularly often as a hematologist now, but they're so uniform and it's so picturesque. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, let's see this. And I bring this one over because this is a
Beautiful.
pycnotic cell.
Yep.
But see how like the nuclear fragments are different sizes, and some of them are nice and round, some of them are more ovoid. They're not equal distribution, equal size like we saw the bacteria were before.
Yep. Right. Yep. And I think I see another pair of cocci.
Yeah, there, and I actually just saw one over here too.
Yep.
But these are like the ones we're seeing here are just kind of like junky. They're not they were intracellular, right? That was
Yeah.
a cell. So
Yeah.
it's not quite as nice as the other bacteria that we saw. But yes, and so this is what you're looking for in comparison to this.
Yeah.
We
The
haven't
other
seen
thing, oh, sorry.
we haven't seen any rods yet in any of this in any of the specimens that we're looking at these slides, but rods will look a little different. But I feel like rods are even more obvious than
Yeah.
cocci.
I 100% agree with you. Cocci to me in right stain is more difficult. Yeah, rods are just there's less likely to be something shaped like um, a rod shape. One thing I do want to know, and I want everyone to take this with a grain of salt, but my intuitions when we first started looking at this slide. So full disclosure, we perused the answer key, right? But still, when we first started looking at these cells, the neutrophils looked raggedy, kind of. I use this term "been through war." So I did notice that, and it makes me more sensitive to bacteria. And Melissa just found a pool of cocci just hanging out together here. Yeah, that's just perfect, right? Like just it's very likely staph given its
In clusters.
yeah, it's clusters.
But again, for hematological purposes, we would just report out bacteria.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Sometimes we can look at it and like this one say, "Oh, look, it's in clusters." But we
Yeah,
would never share that with the physician because that's not our role from this slide.
it's a very good point. It's very inappropriate for us to do that.
Because we can tell it's probably cocci in clusters. We can probably tell that, but this isn't a gram stain.
Yep.
So that's not the function of a right stain.
Yep.
So our right stain, we're not going to identify anything about the bacteria other than it's bacteria.
Yep. That's very well put. Yeah, I mean, I think I seem to recall too, like stay in your lane, like right.
Yeah.
But I think the bacteria uh reporting was basically present or not, right? It's a qualitative thing, and I think that's entirely appropriate.
Ooh, a bunch
Oh,
more
beautiful. Yeah.
bacteria over here.
It's funny, like once you see a finding, it almost starts to just like show itself even more everywhere else.
Although the crystals aren't quite still showing themselves.
Yeah, and we may, I may be mistaken. It could be that a crystal ID comes up with nothing. But it's just a peculiar shape of a
Yeah.
vacuole to make.
No, I agree. I just haven't seen any more.
Yep.
And it could just be that there's a low crystal count. in
True.
this patient too. You know what? Why don't we venture? Actually, if we venture into the thicker area,
Yep. And yeah, and let me say, I fully support going into thick area for qualitative findings.
this guy here has one right there.
You see it? Yeah. Is it refracting?
Not quite as
Oh
well
yeah,
as on here, but it is refracting.
I could see. Yeah, I can see that. Yep. So that looks consistent with the pseudo gout like crystal.
Yeah, right
Cool.
there, along with the bacteria right there.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's a neat slide. I was kind of down on synovials, but this has actually been a great teaching experience with the color, the staining, and the findings and everything. Oh, beautiful looking mono.
Oh yeah, look at that. Just kind of seeing if there's anything else that we can. Oh, too thick. Yeah, and again, see these really thick areas. They're like neon pink.
And that's a I can picture someone looking at this and coming to very wrong conclusions. Um, yeah, you can see it right in that one's kind of snapshot fields, the difference in staining.
This right here, like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Notice the blue nuclei on the left with the
Yeah.
pink cytoplasm, and then the purple nuclei on the right, and
Yep. Yeah, you're
and
right.
DNA is DNA is DNA. So
Yeah.
so it has to just be like a pH differential across. I don't even know what the mesh. This is microns apart from each other.
I'm debating
I
if
would also say that like infected body fluids tend to have weird staining characteristics like this too. I feel like.
ooh, we're getting away from
Oh
this.
my goodness, yeah. So you can see in some of the areas the stain almost didn't even function.
Yeah.
Like, look at this.
Yes.
No reactivity.
This is where too the bacteria are really hard to pick out, but sometimes the crystals are a little bit easier in here.
Mm. So thick areas have their value. We don't want to discourage you from observing them, but you just should not make cell differential calls here.
Like this one, it looks like there's a really nice one right here. I
That's
mean,
a
the
little tough
cell
for me.
is not staining well at all anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's easier to see it in oh I mean that's really nice right there. But it's you can see sometimes the crystals a little bit better in here. But again, you kind of have to know what you're looking for
Oh, definitely.
when you're looking in the thick areas. All right.
It's so funny. It looks like two different slides sometimes.
Oh, well, there's some nice bacteria over here somewhere. Where did you go? See, sometimes the slide cooperates with us perfectly, and sometimes it doesn't. There's a neutrophil that was beat up. Where are you? Right there. With lots of bacteria that was
Yep.
intracellular.
Yep.
And if you look, it actually almost looks like this is a crystal.
I thought that when you first came to the field, I thought that too. Yeah.
It's not quite as refractive as the other crystals, but it has that quality to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. We're ending it on bacteria and a potential crystal.
And crystals. I like that. There's a good finale. Synovial finale.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have for this video. So thanks for watching.
Thank you for your time.